King, it's a lot of suckers out here with their money, and you can't be no sucker out here with your money.
Bro, I ain't no sucker. Bet you I don't.
Okay. What's assets?
Assets are things that bring money into your bank account.
What's liabilities?
Liabilities are things that take money out your bank account.
Entrepreneurship is the act of becoming an entrepreneur. What's entrepreneurship?
Entrepreneurship is a process of setting up a business or businesses.
Taking on a greater than normal.
Financial risk.
What's an entrepreneur?
Entrepreneur is a person that organizes and operates a business or businesses.
Also taking on a greater than normal.
Financial risk.
What's financial mean?
Money.
And what's risk mean?
Chance.
Come on. What does it mean to own stock?
When you own a share of a company.
Come on. What's real estate investing?
Real estate investing is when you invest in a immovable property.
What's the two types of real estates?
Commercial real estate and residential real estate.
What's commercial real estate?
Commercial real estate is property for businesses and workspace, like an office, store, or land.
And what's residential real estate?
Property to live on, like a house, apartment, or condominium.
Come on. It comes with extra fees when you have real estate, you feel me?
Mm-hmm.
Daddy tells you how many times he pays his state property tax a year.
Once a year.
What's the type of maintenance fee?
Cutting grass.
Come on. What's HOA?
Homeowner association.
And what comes along with that?
HOA fee.
Come on. And when it comes to the brokerage percent, what percent is that?
7.
Come on. What's equity?
Equity is the difference between what your business is worth minus what you owe on it.
Also assets minus
liabilities and debt.
Good job. What's credit report?
Credit report is like a report card letting you know how well you did by paying your money back you borrowed.
And how does credit affect your life?
The better you keep your credit, the more opportunities you'll have to get funding.
And what? Large purchases like?
A car or a house.
Come on. And always repay what you
owe.
Because if you owe somebody, that means you're in
debt.
And you never want to be in
debt.
Because that means you
owe somebody.
And we don't never owe
somebody.
Because that ain't what suckers do, period. Come on.
Yeah, man.
Well, every week, hello, audience. First of all, this is George Demaree with Money Matters. And this week, my co-host is Osia Craig. He's a loan originator for Eclipse. Say hello, Osia.
Good morning, everybody. How you all doing today?
And we're going to spend some time on mortgages, interest rates, what it looks like, and to put you in a position to own your own property. Last night, Reverend Cosby's subject matter for Wednesday Bible study was, you don't belong in a cornfield. Well, he used the scarecrow as an example of why was he a scarecrow, because he didn't realize his potential. So what we do here at Money Matters, in every way that we can, is to share with you that there's other opportunities that we want to make sure that you get out of the cornfield. Now, let me tell you one of the things that we've noticed that as a matter of fact, Sharon Bell pointed out to me just today, is now because of this crisis that we're in, OC, that there are signs in the yard where people are saying, we will take over your mortgage payment. Well, that's not good. That's not good for someone else to be able to come in and take over the equity that you've built in your mortgage. Tell me some of the things people can do, OC, so they won't get into that position moving forward.
Well, George, first of all, if you're running into difficulty in maintaining your payment, the very first thing you should do is communicate with your lender, because believe it or not, they're really there to help you, serve you, because they want you to stay in that home. They don't want that home back. They're in the finance world. They're not in the real estate world, so they're just here to finance for you. So if you start to see that you're struggling, immediately communicate with your lender, and they will probably work with you in helping you to maintain and stay in your home and not give your home away. And if it gets so difficult that based on the information they give you, I'm gonna tell you, we're in a seller's market right now, George. So if you're hurting, don't give your house away. Heck, stick a sign in the yard and sell it and keep your equity, and maintain your credit as well. So if you see it start to get tough, that's an option. I know you still have to find a place to go live. You gotta have a roof over your head, but I promise you, call your lender first. They'll work with you. I would almost tell you 95% of the lenders in this country understand that, especially since COVID-19, even more so they understand that, whether it be deferments or things of that nature. don't ever let someone come and talk you out of your home and the equity you've built, just like George said. So that's the first thing. Make the call to the lender. And two, if it gets to a point where even beyond their assistance, heck, we have a lot of great realtors in this town that go right to this church that may help you sell, maintain your equity, and then, heck, temporarily find somewhere else to live. Rent is not always the option, but we don't want to see you give your home away either. So those are the two things I would recommend that you do and maintain your ownership and your equity. Very important.
Yeah, one of the things that we have talked about repeatedly is communicate.
Absolutely.
Communicate with your lenders. Trust me, as OC said, they're not in the real estate business. They're in the lending of money industry. So no matter who your creditors are, once you see it, and you see when trouble's coming, don't wait until 60 days when you're in trouble. If you see it prior to your due date, get on the phone right then.
Absolutely.
Especially during these times, people will help you. I went and decided to do even more research on what credit card companies are doing still during this period. And I'm telling you, they are still helping folks. They do not want for you to, they don't want you to foreclose on your property.
Mm-hmm.
They will put you in a position where you can make your credit card payments. But the bottom line is, it's on you. We talked about this a few weeks ago. You create the narrative.
Absolutely.
You set the tone.
Absolutely.
I've said many times, a good offense will beat a good defense. You know.
You're absolutely correct. Yes.
If you're one of those folks who can't stand to hear the phone ring because you don't know if that's a creditor or not, trust me, it's not hurting the creditor, it's hurting you, and it's hurting your number for a lot of reasons.
Absolutely.
As it relates to, you just mentioned this earlier, OC, about the market. Kind of tell us about the housing market today and what's that look like?
Well, I'm going to tell you, it's looking very well right now, I promise you. I've been in the mortgage business for 34 years, and prior to late part of 2016, we went over a decade where it was a buyer's market, okay? And the reason for that is we were coming off of a very difficult time in the mortgage industry where values were going down, people were losing homes. That's not the case today, so much so that people today are getting more than probably what their property is worth. Values are going up again. In Jefferson County, from Mortgage Bankers statistics, that annually right now, there's about a 4% appreciation on your property.
Wow.
So that means if you own a $100,000 home today, this time next year, it's going to be worth about 104.
Wow.
So you're going up that type of percentage just in home ownership. So again, it's a great time to buy. Now, the only caveat that we've got going though, George, is inventory is down. That's what's kind of created this little bubble of values kind of going the way they are because there are more buyers than there are homes. So if you're selling your home today and you're ready to move up, what a great time to consider doing it. And the reason why it's important is because you're going to get probably the best price for your home. But two, we need your home because there's some first-time home buyers that I've got pre-qualified as having a difficult time finding the right home. You may be in a perfect position to move up today, get top dollar for your home and get what you want and open the door for a first-time home buyer to get a nice property. And it's a great circle. Everybody's going forward. Everybody's winning. You're getting what you want. First-time home buyers are getting what they want and creating that wealth.
I just went online. As I said, you can find all this stuff out, guys. Everything that I find out, that most of which that I share with you guys, other than my personal experiences, is that if you go online and look, you'll find it. I noticed that in March to March, inventory was down 15%. And guess what happens?
Yes.
It's just a law of economics. You know, when supply is low, demand's high, price goes up. Price goes up. Now, the downside, OC, of selling your property at a premium is that now you need to buy a piece of property at premium.
That's right.
So, you know, so it goes both ways, you know.
It goes both ways. But let me add this, George, while you're on that subject. It's probably a good time for those folks who might be ready to step up, consider what rate they have on their mortgage now compared to today's rates,
Oh, wow, we're
because
gonna talk
rates
about that.
today are looking very good. I know you're going to talk about this, but I wanted to interject that because we're going to come back to the interest rate game.
It's the amount of house you can buy, as much as anything. There's a lot of determinants when it comes to that, but one of them is interest rates, because your interest rates is a direct relationship to the payments that you make every month.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about interest rates. Osia, where are they today compared to 6 months ago?
Well, you know, interest rates, let me just say this first about rates. We got different products, which also varies in pricing, okay? But then also where you are financially will impact that. Most loan programs would define your interest rate based on your credit score. So we're gonna talk about that again too. So, but credit scores are very indicative to that interest rate that you get. But we have rates as low as 3% right now on a 30-year fixed rate basis with a great credit score. Now, what a great credit score is, you know, once you get above 700, you start getting around that 740 range, you start to hit what we call an A+ rating, and you're going to always get the very best rate regardless of what that product is, okay? But I will tell you this, from an interest rate standpoint, most loan programs typically will require you to have at least a 620 credit score. And George, I want to say this about credit and credit scores, because we could talk all day about credit, but we're going to keep this very condensed. But here's what happens. When you come to a residential lender, we're going to pull a tri-merge credit report. And that's where we get credit from the three major bureaus, and that's TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. In all of our softwares throughout the country, when we order credit, our system is going to default that middle score. So when we talk about you need at least a 620 credit score, it's a 620 middle credit score. And keep in mind, our tri-merge system and our scoring system is a little bit different than Credit Karma and CreditWise and all these other agencies that tell you what your score is. So be very careful with those. You're probably going to find the score that we get when we pull that tri-merge may be something different from what you're watching monthly on a Credit Karma. And I'm going to explain that real quick because I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, George.
But
go ahead.
this is interesting.
Okay.
So, three major credit bureaus, right?
Yes.
I'm very aware of all three.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to pull the credit from all three to see if a person is credit worthy enough to own or to borrow money to buy a house.
Correct.
So it does it average all three together and pick the average? So it drops the minimum? Let's go over that one more time.
So when we pull that tri-merge report, all three bureaus are going to give you a score.
Gotcha.
The high score goes out, the low score goes out.
Oh,
that
gotcha.
system's going to default that middle score.
Gotcha.
Okay? So that being said, even if Credit Karma was a very accurate number, and they typically only give two.
They do.
That's
what I use.
Right. So you don't know what that third one is. Is it the highest one or is it the lowest one? You know, so it doesn't give you a full picture. Just know that in the residential world, that's what we do. And let me say this, it's not an average. So it's really ironic, but some creditors, if you go buy a car, a bank may only look at one of those scores and make a determination for you to buy a car. So if you look at your entire profile, let's say you got a credit card, you got a student loan, you got a car payment, and each one of those creditors may not report to all three. So that's why the score has a differential based on your utilization and who it is that you conduct that credit business with. That's why there's a variance. A lot of people say, well, why is this TransUnion different from, that's why. So it comes into play there. But yeah, utilization is very, very big. But that middle score is how we define where you are and how we qualify you. And that 620 is a minimum score in most loan programs. There are some lenders that may even take less than that, but I'm going to tell you, you start getting below 620. Back in the day before FICO score system kicked in, we used to qualify people manually, and credit scores had nothing to do with how we qualified you. And back in the day before the FICO score system entered the mortgage industry back in the early 90s, the only people who bought homes were people who qualified. So the credit score still has a few gray areas, but I will tell you, it's a very consistent program with FICO. If you got a middle score, if you got at least 620, and I run you through this automated system, George, and I get what we call an approved eligible, there's a good chance I'm going to get you in a home.
So let me ask the question. Let me ask as it relates to credit score and interest rates, the correlation between the two. Okay. If my credit score is 740 and above, what's the likelihood of me getting a 3% interest rate today?
Very good.
All right, now.
Very, very good.
If my credit score is, let's say, 650, where does that 3 interest rate go? How many more points, or how much higher will that be for that kind of credit score?
You know, for such a long time, George, it used to be a much defined science that for every 20-point interval your score goes down, you could potentially see your rate go up about 1/8%. In today's time, it's so volatile, it's not as a science as it once was, and each investor has different pricing just because of risk. But if you use that as a rule of thumb, I would almost tell you if somebody had a 650 compared to a 740, that interest rate would probably be in the mid to upper threes. So that can impact your possibility of how much you qualify for, because you already mentioned it. Higher the rate, higher the payment.
So the rate won't be as high as I believe that it would be, even if it was 650. So
correct.
So at 740, if this one person is at 3%, then the one at 650 may be 3.5, 3.6,
or even maybe 3.75 potentially. Yes. So let's say this: when we talk about interest rates, we have what we call fee-based pricing. Credit score is the #1 item that defines the rate that you're going to ultimately get. But there are other factors. They will look at product, whether it's conventional or FHA, okay, because it will vary a little bit. They'll also look at your loan to value. How much money are you putting down? Are you putting a small amount down, or are you putting a larger amount down? That's an impact. And then your ratio, how much debt you have compared to your income.
Let's talk about a little bit about the debt to income ratio.
Yes.
Tell me about that, Osia.
Well, every loan program will have a debt ratio maximum that they don't want you to exceed. Okay, and historically, ratios are based on historical events. Okay, and of course, the higher the debt ratio, the more risk there is.
Share with the audience what that is.
So let me give you an idea. When we pre-qualify people, now we pre-qualify you on your gross income. So that's going to already be something new for a lot of people, because most people, when they define their all their debt, their housing debt, their car insurance, they're looking at what they bring home. And that's how they determine what they feel like they qualify for.
Wow.
So that already is a misconception. So when we go to qualify people, I've had many people, George, where I tell them, well, you can qualify for a $1,200 mortgage payment. Well, I don't want to pay $1,200. I'm only wanting to stay about $800 to $900. Well, that's okay. That's good, because I'm going to let them know what they can buy at $800 to $900, because I'm going to back into their income and what their debts are based on the product to give them exactly what they're able to do based on that score that I have and the product. So it's good to be able to know what your ability to buy is. So I give them two things, George. I give them a qualification based on their comfort level, but I also let them know that this program is based on your income and your debt. You could actually buy this much house. Now, I don't mean to do that because I want people to buy a more expensive home. No, I want them to know that they have the ability and the buying power, that when they get out there on the open market, what they are able to do. Because there's a real big difference of being comfortable and ultimately getting what they want and being happy with it, because it is a big transaction. Most of the time, it's the largest transaction they're ever going to make in their life. So we want to make sure we guide them the correct way and they end up getting what they want.
How often do interest rates change?
They can change daily. It's almost like the stock market, but mortgage loans are not tied to the stock market or the treasury securities. They're tied to a bond market, and the bond market is how just about every lender in this country defines what interest rate that they offer. And I'm going to tell you, it's a very competitive industry. So from one lender to the next, you don't see some great difference on the same product with the same score, because we have the same guidelines. So if we're looking at a conventional loan, a 30-year fixed conventional, if you go to another part of the state or another part of the region, there's a good chance you're going to be looking at pretty much the same pricing. Sometimes there's a little variance there regionally. but we're dealing with the same underwriting guidelines for which we qualify on. And I don't get real technical, but you got FHA, you got VA. Conventional loans, we follow two federal agencies for the most part. That's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and just about everybody's heard of them. Don't know what their impact is.
I did some research on
Yes.
those two just recently, so I could have a better understanding. So go ahead. I'm sorry
Yes.
for interrupting.
So they set the criteria. So when you go, whatever lender you go to, whether it's a bank, it's a mortgage company, just know that we're following a whole lot of the same guidelines and compliance when we're qualifying you for a mortgage. So
Let me ask another question.
Yes.
All right. Let me tell you why I ask. Recently, a person that's very close to me was paying right at $1,600 a month in rent.
Wow.
It was a 3-bedroom apartment. It's a townhouse.
Mm-hmm.
It was close to 2,000 square feet.
Gotcha.
Wasn't in the best of areas, but yet it had the space he needed.
Right.
And I pushed him, and now he's closing on the house tomorrow, right? And the payment, if he could have bought a house for $250,000 and literally had a payment below what he was paying for rent.
Guarantee you.
So with that being the case, tell me a little bit about the fears people have. Remember in the serenity prayer, we talked about this. We said, God, give me the serenity to understand the things that I can't change, but the courage to change the things that I can. So what happens to folks? What is reasons people cannot get out of that renter's kind of cycle?
That is the most difficult thing. But you know what? I think a lot of it's hereditary, okay?
Wow.
Because I'm going to promise you, we do home buying seminars on an ongoing basis. I'm a part of a committee, and all the folks in it, Louisville Home Buyers Community Initiative. And when we talk to people, it's because that's all they know, and that's what they've been taught. And we're trying to break that cycle, because when they see mom and dad have rented for the last 20 years, guess what they think? It's okay to do the same thing. So we're trying to break that cycle. And I'm going to tell you, and just what you said in those numbers, on a very large scale, I'm going to tell you 7 out of 8 times I can probably show folks how they can own a property cheaper than they can rent. And the only thing that makes that so different is, and I have a good friend, when we do these home buying seminars, he said, who do you love better, yourself or your landlord? Because every time you make that rent payment, all you're doing is helping your landlord either pay his mortgage and create wealth. And if you had your own mortgage, every payment you make, you're applying money to your principal. So that means the amount that you owe is going down, okay? That means you're building equity, plus it's yours. You can do anything you want with it. But here's the other thing. I just gave you some other statistics. Each year, guess what those values are doing? Right now, it's about 4%. It's going up. So your value's going up, your principal's going down, you're still making a payment, you still got a roof over your head, but the difference is it's yours, and that's how we create wealth in this country.
This is how people have created wealth in this country since this country started. People created wealth through property. That's what they did. They have. Is because there's only so much of it, and when you own it, yes, there are dips, just like there's dips in the stock market.
Absolutely.
But over time, the value of that piece of property
always a plus
is going to that is an appreciating asset.
Absolutely.
So again, let me use Reverend Cosby's theme last night. We're going to try our best to get you out of the cornfield, and to take the wool out of the way, and the smoke to let you know that you can get it done. Now,
absolutely.
I've bought a few houses in my lifetime, but this person who's buying a house, this is the first house he bought. All the things he had to do to get there, and trust me, it's not easy.
No. It
is a long process, and they need to know everything pretty much about you before somebody's going to lend you $100,000. Trust me.
That's correct.
But guess what happens the day you sign that dotted line? Tell what happens, OC?
Well, there's a whole lot of joy in a closing attorney's office. That's the day you get keys and a deed and home ownership, and you're on the steps to generational wealth. Because even if something happens to you down the road, guess what? You can pass it on to your kids and your grandkids. And these are nothing but pluses, guys. And the thing I'm gonna rewind just a little bit about what you just said there, George, because this process, even though it's lengthy, and here's what I tell people, all of my first-time home buying seminars, for the most part, is one of the largest transactions you're ever going to make. And it's not like buying a car, because I promise you, you can go on any major street in this town, and there's car dealerships all over the place. You can pull in on one today, test drive one you like. They'll fill out one little sheet of paper, run you through a credit if your credit's good. And then sometimes if it's not good, they'll still get you in a car.
At a
That's
very
not
high
always good. At a very high interest rate on a depreciating asset. Well, it ain't an asset.
Right.
Well, it is, but it's depreciating. And same day, you're pulling off the lot with your new car. You just don't do that when you buy a home. It is preparation. And for the people that are prepared, this process, two things. It don't have to be hard, and it doesn't have to be long. I promise you, if someone has their ducks in a row, George, they come see me, within 60 minutes, I can tell somebody if they qualify and how much and what's the best product is going to suit their financial needs.
That quickly.
That quickly. They could go out this weekend, find the home they want, sign a contract, and within 30 to 45 days, you're in your home while the temperature is still warm. Hopefully school will start for the kids soon. But you have a home ownership. And I got to tell you guys, it really can happen that quick. Now, and I've seen it many, many times. Now, but on the same token, it is about that preparation. So what George is providing right now is such a value. The understanding of your finances and the importance of how you conduct it month in and month out follows you everywhere you go. And these credit scores are one that don't run your life. Like you said, you're in control, because if you handle your finances the correct way, that credit score is going to follow you good. You will always be in a position of power. So if you do want to buy a home, guess what? You can. And if you are buying anything, you're going to buy it at its best price, because you're not paying double-digit interest rate because your score isn't where it needs to be. You're going to get it at the very best, which also comes back around that generational wealth, because you're buying and accumulating asset, and your return is greater than what you're paying. So,
And you can get there.
yes.
We can help you to get there. You just have to work on it. The money that you're spending on things that you don't need. You remember last week, one of the points we talked about, OC, is that anything that you bought yesterday, right, has lost value already. Anything you bought yesterday is lost. If you bought a living room set yesterday and you spent $1,000 for it, to simplify the math, the very next day you'd be lucky to get $500 for it.
If you sold to somebody on the open market.
On the open market.
Yeah, not in a retail store, but
No, that's exactly right. So we're talking about putting you in a position for ownership, and what's that look like, and don't be afraid to do it. Let's talk about some other interest rate opportunities. All right, you have fixed rates, and then you have what they call ARMs.
adjustable rate mortgages. Now, you know, most people and a majority of people don't want the risk of an adjustable. Just to hear that A word scares people. But I will tell you, an adjustable, which we don't write a lot of them in today's times, but sometimes they can still serve a purpose. Now, adjustables throughout my career have been very volatile to the industry, and here's why. And let's just say if you are looking at purchasing real estate, which we'd rather you do that than rent, but let's say your goal is not to stay in that property a very long period of time. Traditionally, adjustable rate mortgages can be slightly better in interest rate than it is on a fix. And if you're not going to be there for an extended period of time, then it might make financial sense, but not long term. That's not the direction. I'm going to tell you, 99.9% of probably every loan that I've done in the past 2 decades have been basically a fixed rate. Now, from if you were an investor buying property to rent out, Sometimes that may be the only option you have that still allows you to make money and whatever. But I'm here to tell you we do have different products, but an adjustable serve a purpose, I think, on a short-term basis, and where you can save during the time you're there in comparison to a fixed and sell, make your money, and go to the next one. But
It doesn't. I mean, based on today's interest rates,
wouldn't make
in
sense.
my opinion, they don't make sense.
It don't make sense.
It doesn't.
That's today's time.
In
even more
today's
so.
times, now when interest rates are high, there may be a time when you do adjust. But at this point, I just wanted to bring it up because
to know this there.
because you know that's there. And it depends on what your goals are.
Absolutely.
If you had a piece of property and that's your home and this is where you're going to be, then do 30 if you can. Cut down the years if you can.
If you can.
Because you can build equity in that home faster on a 20-year note, 15 or 10.
And let me add while you're on that subject, because most first-time home buyers, guys, I mean, it's about being comfortable. The shorter the term, interest rate actually can be a little bit less. When you talk about a 30-year, a 15 or a 10-year, those three terms, typically you'll see some variance in the rate. The shorter the term, a little bit better interest rate. But when you cut your term, you're moving your payment up. So what you qualify for is reduced. And so about 100% of the time, a first-time home buyer is doing a 30-year mortgage.
Yes.
But let me say this about a 30-year mortgage and what George just said. It's going to help you to qualify for what is it you want to get. But as you move forward, when you have available assets, one of the best things you can do is apply extra money toward the principal. Because what happens is you're cutting the term. Your payment, let's say you close on a 30-year fix, let's still use the $100,000. Let's say your payment's $800, and it's locked in. I mean, that's a fixed rate. It's going to stay $800. Okay, but now you have a few extra bucks. I got $50 extra this month, or $100. If you apply that over and above the $800 payment, it goes straight to principal. So that means the next month, the interest that you pay is less, and that means more is going to principal. And that 30-year mortgage is now being condensed by shorter term. And by reducing the term, you can save literally huge amounts of money in your interest by prepaying your loan.
We talked about interest
Yes.
a number of weeks ago, and how interest is calculated. It's not all equal. No one is doing simple interest. We talk simple interest is if you borrow $100, you owe 110 at a 10% interest rate. But that's not what they do. Remember, credit cards use a compound interest rate. Remember that? So what they do is they add interest on top of interest, which makes it a lot more difficult for you to pay it off. That's why if you have a credit card, the best thing you can do is to pay it off. Now, I'd say rule of thumb, if I could just segue to that just momentarily, is that if you're going to put something on a credit card, try your very best to pay it off during that period. When that happens, you pay no interest. But there are times, like we're going to right now, where you may need a credit card, where you may need you need a new furnace and you didn't expect it coming. So those are times when it's good to have good credit, and you can have credit cards to at least help you through those tough periods. And the thing how interest is calculated on a mortgage is completely different. Won't you share that with them? Because you pay
Absolutely.
a higher amount of interest early in the term, and it's amortized.
The amortization.
Right?
That's right.
Yes.
So just like what George is saying is, on a 30-year term, the longer the term, okay, again, even though the principal and interest is fixed, okay, in the early part of that term, of that payment, probably 85% of it is going to your interest. People say, well, oh my God, why do I want to do this?
It is.
Well,
early in the term.
Early in the term. And that's why prepayment is even important. But with each payment, that same fixed payment, here's what happens with that same 800. Principal increase, interest decrease. And each passing month, it does this. And at some point down the road, you will get to a level at this loan where either 50% or even more of that payment is applied to principal. And here's what I'm going to advise you to do. Everybody knows about Google. Just take a false amount, because we're talking about $100,000. Take $100,000 and take a 3.5% rate for 360 months and put in there an amortization. Just take a look at it, and you can follow it all the way through, and you'll see how principal and interest work. And anytime you can prepay it, it just allows you to be in control of how much money you save on that interest. Now, you'll pay the full amount that amortization says. If you take one payment at a time for the next 360 months, you're going to pay that amount of interest that amortization table shows you. But you're in control to start cutting into that. And I hope you don't mind me jumping real quick.
Please.
Because I'm on this subject. It's just making me want to say this. First-time home buyers, pay attention. This is another reason why they get in the game.
Gotcha.
Kentucky Housing Corporation, which is one of the largest first-time home buying organizations in the state, helping thousands of people get in homes every year. They have a product.
I was going to ask you about a product for first-time
I want you
home
to hear this. Now, KHC has a product to help everybody get their foot in the door, and they have down payment assistance up to $6,000 toward your purchase. So if you don't have money, you work every day, you're renting, you can't save the down payment money, KHC says, call us. And I can do KHC loans, by the way. We can get them pre-qualified and get you down payment assistance to get you in a home today and not wait for tax time for money to come to buy a home. Don't wait. Okay, that's the first thing.
Get out of the cornfield.
Get out of the cornfield. That's right. Second thing KHC offers, they have, write this down because you want to talk about this some more. MCC stands for Mortgage Credit Certificate. If you are a first-time home buyer, now I'm not a CPA, but I do know with a lot of tax reform, if you don't have a certain amount of deduction, you can't even file long form, and we used to be able to deduct mortgage interest. If you don't meet that minimum, you're not deducting it. But here's what KC still says you can do with this MCC. You can take 25% of the interest you pay on that loan every year. Not one time, George. Every year, it's a tax credit. It's like Uncle Sam writing you up to 25% of the interest.
Now say that again.
Now I'm going to say it again. Now let me break it down.
Yeah, I got it.
Let's just say that your monthly interest on that $100,000 loan at 3.5%
right.
comes to I'm working with round numbers here.
Right.
$4,000 you're paying in interest on that $100,000 loan.
For the year.
For the year.
Gotcha.
Okay? Back in the day, we used to be able to deduct all $4,000.
Absolutely.
So if you made $40,000 and you got a $4,000 deduction, now you're being taxed at $36,000.
That's right.
Gone. Okay? Unless you meet the minimum. And I think that's $12,400, which a lot of first-time home buyers don't get that deduction to take advantage of that. But what KHC is doing, have been doing for years with this mortgage credit certificate, is 25% of that is a tax credit.
So it's $1,000.
$1,000. It's like Uncle Sam writing you an extra check back at tax time. So if you're already getting a refund every year, we're going to add that $1,000. Every year you file.
Money matters. This is why we do Money Matters, to share information like this. And I had no idea.
People didn't know that.
You
now,
know?
let me throw one more thing in. This is why this is powerful. You cannot miss this. This MCC is two things. One, you can take that 25% tax credit, take that $1,000, add it to your income to qualify for that house that you may have been close and didn't quite fit. They'll let you utilize it as income. That's the first one. But the second one that I talk about all the time is take that $1,000. Listen to this. We've been talking about prepayment. Take that $1,000 tax credit, put it on your principal every year, consistently. On that $100,000 loan, you take about 8.5 years off your loan.
8.5. So
that's over tens of thousands of dollars of interest saved.
Tens of thousands of dollars.
So that's how powerful that is. Or take the $1,000. Here's what I tell them to do here, George. Take the $1,000, put in a savings account, and use it as a subsidy towards your mortgage payment. That's $83 a month. You can take out that savings account, put with your hard-earned money to help make your mortgage payment. Stay ahead. You ain't worrying about them phone calls, I'll take over your mortgage. This is the things that we've got, people. You got to understand the importance of home ownership. It's powerful.
What we're saying, no matter what the subject matter, today happens to be mortgages and home ownership.
Absolutely.
But what we're trying to do, audience, is inform you. It's what you don't know.
Absolutely.
You know, we talked about, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about employment opportunities. And I said out loud, who knew that someone who sold advertising made more money than a person that was actually on air? who knew that? You know what I mean? It's things that the other demographic knows, and it's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's not Osi's fault. It's what you've been exposed to.
Absolutely.
So what we're doing in this program for 45 minutes a week is giving you information that maybe you can't use, but I bet you that you know somebody right now,
Absolutely.
right this minute, that you can call and say you've been renting that place for 4 years, you've been paying $850 a month, and I'm telling you, I've done the math on it. I mean, you could borrow $160,000, right, at a 3.5% interest rate. And Osia, you just told me that maybe Johnny over here may have a 740 credit rating, and his interest rate's going to be 3. But just because Betty over here has a 750, it may end up being 3.5. I had no idea it was that close. So if you got a 3.5 interest rate, you put down 3%. We're going to talk about that in a minute too, because man, we could talk about this all
day long.
3. Your payment, this is tax, interest, also PMI. We're going to talk a little bit about PMI. It's $1,000 a month at a house that retails at 160, and at 4%, next year is going to be worth 162, almost 163. Plus, because you've been working on paying down that principal for
year 2. That's right. So you're just taking steps forward. That's what it's all about. Yeah, it's big time.
PMI. Do some people tell the audience, man, I got so much to talk about.
I know it. Private mortgage, and I'll try to keep my responses down so you can get through it. But private mortgage insurance it's there. It's been around for a long time, guys. And private mortgages insurance is basically lender's risk protection. Okay, if you got 20% down, we can put you on a conventional loan and avoid PMI. Okay.
20%
down is really the number to avoid PMI. That takes away a majority of the buyers. And not just first-time home buyers, even some second and third-time buyers don't always have 20%. So it is there. It's been there a long time. FHA calls it mortgage insurance premium, same thing. Conventional loans call it private mortgage insurance, but basically it's lender's risk protection. It is an added premium that is added to your payment to insure the loan. If you forfeit on the loan, that PMI company has a liability to the lender to pay a percentage of that mortgage. It doesn't mean just because it's there that you don't make your mortgage payment. No, it means you're paying more because you're a little bit higher risk because you're putting less down. Doesn't mean we don't want to do you the loan, but that's really what it is lender's risk protection. Some programs, conventional loans, over time, let me see if I can find it, that premium can go away, okay? On an FHA loan, unless you have at least 10% down, it would be there for the life of the loan. But as time go on, and when you reach a certain level, and typically when you get to 80%, it can go away. And so for that reason, it's not there for the life of the loan when you're doing these amortizations. But it is factored into your finance charge because it is an added premium. It does affect you there because I know a lot of times we talk about interest rates and then people see their annual percentage rate, which is based on cost, and finance charges like mortgage insurance, and you may see your rate be higher because of that. But amortization is still figured on your base rate. But PMI is there. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's just a part of how we qualify.
Now,
it's needed.
Now, I have a rate calculator, and you could do the same thing. You get an app, and you can find everything that you need.
Absolutely.
You can find out, how much house you can buy. It's pretty accurate on your insurance, your taxes, and everything you need. So for an example, right here, that $160,000 loan, at a 3% down payment, at a 3.5% interest rate, the PMI is $227 a month. Excuse me, that's not right. $127 a month. Now, remember, I've seen it happen. Is you make payments on the house, and if that house goes up 4% a year, it may take 3, 4, 5 years, but you could eventually get up to 20% based on the market. and then that PMI goes away. But the key is you got to keep your eye on it because they're not going to call you and tell you.
That's right. You have to follow, and especially if you're prepaying it, George, because it can happen automatically once you get to a certain loan to value. But that can take you 11 years to do that.
You can prepay it?
You can, absolutely. Well, not prepay the EMI, but just prepay your principal.
Got you.
To get to that 80% level.
Got you.
Okay.
Wow.
And there's some parameters there that might come into play, but that's for another conversation. But yeah, that's what the private mortgage insurance is, guys. Don't let that scare you out of getting into home ownership.
All right, let's talk just briefly because we're almost out of time.
Okay.
Let's talk briefly about the folks who have a home, who may build some equity in a home. When does it make sense to do a home equity loan?
Typically, I would tell them not to at all, unless it was just something major in their life that created the reason why they want to pull their equity, okay? Because then you're going to create more debt, okay? But, there's so many different reasons. It could be something medical, it could be something about schooling, whatever that might, or you just might want to pull money out to do renovations to your home to make it worth more. Sometimes that do make sense. I mean, it's good. It's yours. So that's a time that I would consider. But any other time, I would say not to.
Let me ask another quick question. This may be a long answer to this question.
Yes.
But, all right, a person comes to you, and they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? They've been listening to Reverend Cosby every Sunday and Wednesday, and they're ready to get out of the cornfield, right?
Yes.
What can they do to put themselves in a position to buy a house? Let's say when they come and see you, their credit number is 575, but they're good folks and they're trying to make it. They just ran into some bad luck. What can they do to get them in a position to buy a house?
Well, being a loan originator, that's really what our title is, and we have people get financed. One thing I don't come across as trying to be is a credit consultant.
Gotcha.
But I will say this. I have seen literally thousands of credit reports, and I've helped a lot of people get their score up. So here's what I do. When I pre-qualify people, and it doesn't cost anything to get pre-qualified, we complete a loan application. You do provide me with some basic documentation, 30 days of paycheck stubs, 2 months of bank statements, 2 years tax returns. If you bring that with you, sit down in my office, within 60 minutes, I can tell you where you are. If that credit score, like you just said, is 575, I'm going to probably, right there on the spot, be able to create a roadmap for you and tell you what your stumbling blocks are and how to take care of them. Now, I'm glad you brought that up because here's what I tell everybody also. Believe me, credit scores are like your DNA. Do not listen to your family and friends that's telling you what they were able to do and what they was not able to do. And you put that to context, and that keeps you from moving forward. Just know that if you have a 575, you may get a no today, but I can certainly create a roadmap and be very specific, line item, as to what those corrections need to be. And I've helped quite a few people.
How long does it take?
Do that. It varies in time. It depends on what's there. That's that DNA talk. There could be a 575 that may take somebody 6 months to get there. Some else might be at a 575, and I can do it through one billing cycle because they might have their profile a little out of kilter. They got 3 credit cards. It's almost at the max. Paying the balances down, letting it cycle one time can see a significant increase in a score just from a revolving account, okay? So those things vary. So if you got collections, if your profile is just a little out of kilter, sometimes it's just an easy adjustment. Sometimes you may have to go to your pocket, and it may take time to correct credit because credit is most times is not something you can correct overnight.
Right. Gotcha.
It's like the gas prices in reverse.
We are getting close to the end of our time, but I do want to share this before we go. We have a number of great programs coming up. Next week, we have Marcus Fulmer coming in from Edward Jones, and his subject is financing life amid this chaos. I can't wait to hear what he's got to say about that, right? The following week, we have Raymond Smith from Park Community Federal Bank talking about what you can do to get money to start a new business and the products that they have available. And then moving forward, we're going to have we're going to have Ivy back. We're going to have Ivy Brighto back, and she's going to come and she's going to talk about her and another lady, whomever she chooses, to talk about finances from more of a woman's perspective. You know,
Good stuff.
and moving forward, we're going to do kids and we have a great program. So I always like to finish, OC, with some powerful words before we go. And I call these, I used to do this presentation for my sales staff for many years. And frankly, I got it from Reverend Cosby many, many years ago because he always used to use C words, P words, and all that. And so I decided to use it in my sales presentation.
Gotcha.
These were the bonus P words when I did this presentation. Number one, something that you were talking about. Have a perspective to live from. Tell you what that means. How do you view a problem? Do you view a problem as a problem, or do you view a problem as an opportunity? Do not view a problem as a problem. Every time you overcome a problem, when you run into another problem, guess what happens to that hill? It becomes smaller because you have a track record of getting over hurdles. Number two, have a priority to live by. Tell you what that means from my perspective. Watch the haters.
Wow.
Watch the haters. Watch the people, I don't care if they're your family, if they're your friends, or a little pookie down the street that tells you what you can't do and what you can't get done.
That's right.
There's anything you can get done, anytime you want to do it, if you have the will to do it, have the courage to change the things that you can change, and stay away from the haters. We talked about this 2 weeks ago. Look for the encouragers, and those are the people. Number three, have a power to live on. Now, when I'm doing it with my sales staff, I don't throw my power on them, but I'm going to throw my power on you. My power is great power, and that's Jesus Christ. He is the greatest power I know. And when things are going bad, you need to have his power to draw on, and he can get you. Having faith. You cannot have, my wife is one of the most faithful people I know. I've never heard her say, George, I'm worried about that. I don't know anybody like her, to be honest. But she is so faith-driven, right, that she has this belief that no matter what the hurdle is, she can get over it. And finally, my final P word of the day, have a purpose to live for. Why are you here? Why are you here? Are you here to make a guy who has your not your mortgage, but a rental, your landlord rich? Are you here to build his wealth? Are you? Are you here to start building wealth for you? Because let me tell you what OC said. He said the biggest reason that people have fear and they don't go and buy their home is because of hereditary. Are you willing to break that chain? People who don't finish college because their parents didn't, one way or another. You can get it done. Man, OC,
what a pleasure.
It has been my pleasure, brother.
George, all the time.
He and I have been friends for a long time. And one thing we need to do as black people is understand what other people can do that look like us. There's power in unity, and we can get it done. Have a great day.
Thank you.